We can now look in further detail about Omicron because, of course, you know, we've got the situation, haven't we, coming up to Christmas. We're having the warnings to change our plans, to not do things in the same way that we would have done. So we've got an expert panel here to answer our questions, to tell us more about exactly what's going on. This is Dr. David Strain, Senior Clinical Lecturer at the University of Exeter and a member of the NHS Long COVID Task Force. Good morning to you. And also good morning to Professor Tim Spector, Epidemiologist at King's College London and lead of the Zoe COVID study. Morning. Thanks both for joining us this morning. So, Professor Tim, if I can start off with you. Obviously, we've had this record number of cases yesterday, and there are real fears about what's happening with this. There does seem to be that sort of confusion about exactly what's going on. We hear from South Africa that it's a milder form, and yet the consequences could be really severe here.
Yeah, yes. The situation is not clear because we're pretty much the first European country to have these big numbers. And I run the Zoe COVID app, which did have over 4 million people logging on it in the first wave, telling us their symptoms and what was going on. And we're still running this. And this is providing us valuable real-time data about what's happening in the population, not waiting for hospitals or some of the official statistics, which are a bit slower. So we are getting great insights into the symptoms that people are getting with Omicron. And if anyone listening to this can go back on the app, the Zoe COVID app, download it and put in their symptoms so we can find out in real time what it's doing. But what we've looked at is we've seen that the cases of Omicron are predominant in London, and that's where our app is showing the biggest increases. So what we did is we compared the symptoms in London in the last week to a month ago when there was pretty much no Omicron, it was all Delta. And what we're seeing now is that the predominant symptoms are all cold-like symptoms. So the majority of people, over 50% of people, never have classic symptoms. And so they are getting headaches, sore throat, fatigue, sneezing, runny nose, and the traditional symptoms, so that loss of smell and taste, fever and cough, don't even feature in that top 5 anymore. So people need to be on the lookout that this is, for people who are vaccinated or have had a booster, they're getting mild disease, and it's going to look, in most cases, exactly like a cold. Yeah. And our data suggests that colds are also out there. And the risk is about 1 in 4, 1 in 5 of any cold symptom being COVID. And I think that's really what we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah, let's come to Dr. David Strain. I'm not sure if you've heard this, David, but the Brentford manager has asked or called on all the next round of Premier League fixtures to be postponed. They've already had a fixture delayed or postponed because of COVID. And we know that there's been a big outbreak at Tottenham as well. And, of course, you will understand the gathering of tens of thousands of fans coming into a stadium and the implication of that, but equally for the football clubs themselves dealing with COVID outbreaks. As Omicron is taking control, does that sound like a sensible option to you?
It does just at this moment in time. As Professor Spector says, there are just so many unknowns about Omicron. We're hearing reports that it may not be as severe a disease, but they're coming out of South Africa, which is a very different population from we have here in the UK. The population's younger. Only a quarter of the population there are vaccinated, but many have been exposed to both Delta and also the Beta variant, which has got a lot more in common with Omicron. Therefore, it's difficult for us to say what the natural history of this is going to be. And so these mass gatherings where people are getting together and potentially spreading it with an unknown consequences in 2 to 3 weeks, which, as you rightly said earlier, is when we're going to see the impact of these cases. It's sensible to keep things under wraps until we know what the impact is going to be.
Yeah, keep things under wraps. Professor Tim, in your mind, are the restrictions we've got at the moment, are they sufficient? We know Independent Sage has called for a firebreak lockdown, and over half of the population, when they were polled, have backed a further lockdown.
I don't think at the moment a lockdown is called for in my view, but I do think we need more clarity about a few issues, about how better public health messaging that's clearer. I agree. Going to large gatherings is madness at the moment, and that should be very clearly said. That's the biggest way to accelerate spread disease. People are reporting on the app going to birthday parties of 30, 40 people, and 80% of people 2 days later are getting symptoms. And so people have got to be meeting in smaller groups. And I think people have got to know that don't meet up with people unless you know they've had a lateral flow test, and also they don't have cold-like symptoms. And I think this is a message that hasn't got through at all. So I think there's still much more we can do. But if we look at previous waves and pandemics, we've seen that once the public start getting worried, actually that they change their behavior, and that more than official lockdowns is what will drive this down. And everyone wants to try and enjoy Christmas. They don't want to be infected right now. So hopefully most people are going to be sensible. But I think let's stop. What I would do is to stop those mass events, I think, and these really big parties, which are fueling the whole problem.
So it sounds like you'd agree with the Brentford manager that actually the postponing of the next round of Premier League fixtures would be a good way of doing that, particularly with the sort of, the tens of thousands of people meeting in those stadiums. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. We do appreciate your thoughts this morning. That's Dr. David Strain and Professor Tim Spector. Thank you for joining us.